Hi guys, I'm a sixth grade teacher and wanted to show you how to do something that sixth graders do at school called Rule of Four. It's a really great concept because it incorporates so many things that they've learned throughout the year. They should have learned so far. And if not, it's something really easy to adopt at home while you're stuck at home right now. At the beginning of the year, sixth graders learn something called ratios and proportions. Simple, just comparing two numbers. It can be anything in your house. Like you can say that for every 2 pencils in the junk drawer in the kitchen, there are 3 pens. Or for every 1 apple on my plate, there are 3 grapes. So it doesn't matter. You can use any real life situation out of it. So to start that, I would say take a piece of paper, split it into 4 sections. The first one will be the ratio. So this is where you give the ratio, like I just said, comparing apples to grapes or pencils to pens, whatever the situation can be. It can be anything. So let's say that we're going to do 2 apples to every 4 grapes. So for every 2 apples that are on our plate, there are 4 grapes. Okay? Then from there, we do something called a ratio table. And it is simple. It can be anywhere from 4 to 5 3 columns and 4 to 5 rows. And you just put that ratio that we just mentioned here into here. Okay, so one will be the apples and the other side will be the grapes. Leave the middle open for right now. Apples to grapes. So you're going to put that first ratio in the first 2 boxes. So for every 2 apples, there are 4 grapes. Then we're going to continue that ratio on. So let's say that I have now 3 apples. How many apples am I for every 2 apples, I have 4 grapes. If I have 3 apples, how many grapes am I going to have? For every 4 apples, how many grapes am I going to have? Okay. So from there, we need to figure out what is happening to get from these apples to these grapes. Okay. So I can use a mathematical operation to figure that out. So for this one, we're simply multiplying by 2. 2 times 2 is 4, right? So that will be our function that goes here in the middle. That's the operation that we're doing. So we're going to say times 2, times 2, times 2. Okay? Every single thing is multiplied by 2. So then we'll do 3 times 2 because the next one was for 3 apples. 3 times 2 is 6. So for every 3 apples now, there are going to be 6 grapes. And then 4 times 2 would be 8. So for every 4 apples, there will be 8 grapes. Okay? So while these stand for apples and grapes, you can also call them X and Y. Sorry, I'm doing this backward. We can also call them X and Y. Now the reason for that is so we can graph these onto a coordinate plane. Okay? And that'll be our next thing that we do. Okay? So if you have graph paper, great. If not, not a big deal. You're going to simply make a coordinate plane, straight line down and a line across. And you can label these depending on what your ratio was. Okay, so for these ratios, they're fairly low numbers. You can count by 1s or 2s. Okay. So for every X that is in this column is going to be graphed on this line, and then Y will be along the top. So just like you would play Battleship, if I have 2 apples and 4 grapes, I'm going to go over this X coordinate or X axis will count for apples, will be apples. And then my Y axis here will be grapes. So we'll label those. And then we're simply going to graph these. So let's go to the first one. If it's 2 apples and 4 grapes, I'm going to go over to 2 and up to 4. Okay, if I'm counting by ones, that's great. I'm going to count by ones on the x-axis, and I'm going to count by twos on the y-axis. Okay. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 2 up to 10, counting by twos on the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to take this 2 and 4, and I'm going to graph it because now it is a coordinate. So in parentheses, you can label it 2, 4, or the next one would be 3, 6, and the one after that would be 4, 8. Okay? Then you're going to graph these coordinates. So if I go over to 2 and up to 4, then I'd make a dot. And that would be my first coordinate. Then I'll go to the next one, which would be 3, 6. So I'll go over to 3 and up to 6. And then my last one would be 4, 8. So go over to 4, up to 8. Notice that this makes a straight line. They can connect it if they want. If this was to keep going, it would continue to keep going. Okay. Now the last part is something that you're making an equation out of this ratio, out of this situation. Whatever is happening here with your ratio and the ratio table, you're going to make an equation out of it. Okay. So for that, whenever x is a number, we simply, what are we doing every time? We multiplied it by 2 every single time. So my function rule, what I'm doing every time, the rule that applies to all of these numbers is multiplying by 2. So x is being multiplied by 2, and my answer would be whatever is in the y column. So when we write x times 2, we write it as 2x equals, and then whatever's in the y column would be my answer. So it's going to be equal y. All right. Now the cool thing about this is you can start from any of these boxes. So you don't have to start with the ratio. You can give your student just the graph and make them fill out this part from the graph. And then from there, they can even figure out the equation, then figure out the ratio. But you can start with any of these boxes. If you want to start with this, then they have to graph it, then figure out what the ratio is, figure out the equation. The best part, most advanced part, I would say, is start with the equation and then have them fill out the rest of these things. Okay? In the beginning, I would start with the ratio. Take anything in your house. Anything. It can be anything in your kitchen. It's great to find stuff like in your pantry or silverware, anything like that, because I'm assuming that's mostly where they're doing their work at. So that's a great place to start. But this incorporates so many lessons and so many standards in 6th grade that if you keep your 6th grader or middle schooler doing this while they're out of school, their math skills will stay sharp. Promise. All right. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to PM me or message me if you have any questions. All right. Bye.